Hey beautiful family. So I was requested to make a video on a topic. Well, I wasn't requested to make a video, I was asked on a topic, and my immediate reaction was to make a video. And the question was, why was Jesus cruel to the pigs when he cast out demons, the legion of demons from the man who came to him from the tombs? He cast them out into a herd of swine. Now, swine meaning pigs, of course. So this person was saying, why is this happening? Why are they allowed to do that to these poor swine? Why was that the occurrence? So I think it's important that we take a deep breath, first of all, and we remember that in Greek times, remember the New Testament was written in Greek initially, that during the times of the great Greeks and the Stoics, etc., they used a lot of symbolism. And for instance, we know there was not a man with a bull head, a minotaur. We know this was not the case. But when it comes to other things, we kind of lose track that maybe that is integrated within there. Now, it doesn't take away literalism. Don't get me wrong, people often do. It doesn't take away that historical events are changed, but the writer is not writing necessarily a purely historical book. It's a book of spiritual truth. It's a book of parable. So when you understand that and you look at this story, swine represent the lower qualities of what you are. And it's unfortunate for pigs that that's done, but different cultures use different symbology, and swine is what was used at that time. If you look into the Quran at Surah 21, which I've done a video on before, they go into a cave. So going into the cave means they're going within. And they leave at the door the dog. And the dog represents the lower nature inside the Islamic writings of mystics. So the seven go in and they leave the dog. The lower nature is left outside of the cave. When they go within to seek God, they have to leave the lower nature outside. Likewise, the swine is the same thing. That's why Jesus said he's going to kill all the swine at one point. He's got nothing against pigs. He's a very loving guy. He's got no need to do that. It's simply representing a lower part of us, an animal nature that needs to be cut away to understand the higher purity of Christ. So this man comes to him from the tombs, and the tomb actually represents the lower nature of who you are. And he comes and he's filled with demons. And it says that he is crying and hurting himself, and he is between the tombs and the mountains. The mountains are the higher planes of aspiration and consciousness within us. So he's switching between the two because he's a human being and he's infected with this lower nature. So he's juggling it constantly, like we all do in our life. He's juggling it. And Jesus casts them out. And the legion of demons say, cast us into these swine. And he does. So the demonic aspect, the demonic energies of the world can only coexist inside the lower nature of who we are. And this is why they were cast into the swine. It's symbolic, because the lower vibratory spiritual entities that are out into this astral world of ours, that many are communicating with unconsciously, can only truly take root and live well inside that lower part of who we are. And when you cut away that animal nature, when the swine runs into the ocean and they disappear, this herd, then you have abolished it. You have cut away the opportunity for these lower negative entities and energies to work through you. The bad angles of light. You have good angels. Angel is a messenger of light, and a photon is a particle of information, travels on an angle of light. So it's the same thing. And you have negative angles and good angles, fallen angels and good angels. And so as we live inside our world today, unless we can cut away the swine, no offense to pigs, it's just the symbology of the language, unless we can cut away the swine aspect of us, a mystic in the Islamic state would say the dog aspect of you, unless you can cut that away, then you open yourself up to be governed by that those lower vibrational forces that speak to our being. So this is what it's representing. It's not saying that it's necessarily a totally literal event. It's telling you something very important about you and about the entities that are around us on the planet.
There is a place prepared for me, more beautiful than eyes have seen. When these burdens weigh me down, I won't lose heart, I will not doubt. Grace will lead me home. Grace will lead me home through every trial I have come. Only your grace.
Now, at the same time as that, I want to share an interesting story, and I've shared it before. Years and years ago, an amazing lady called Lynn, who lives here in Tanzania, but she's English, and she has a children's home very far from where I am. She called me and said, God has asked me to lay hands on you, and nobody had ever laid hands on me. And we thought it was about my health, because I was getting sick at the time, and I guess maybe it was. Now we went to Lynn's and she laid hands on me and I heated up, and Lynn can speak in tongues and have all of these beautiful abilities, and she's done immeasurable amounts of God's work. She's one of the most godly human beings I know. When I arrived there, Lynn's in her 70s and she'd fasted 3 days purely for me to come and have her lay hands on me with God. Lynn at the time had a pet chicken, and this chicken was young. It wasn't fully grown, but it wasn't a chick, and it would sit on her shoulder in the house while we were chatting, and it would just hop around. So when this was over, I began to feel very drowsy and tired, and we went to sit in the living room. It was myself, Lynn and Fritzy. And sitting there, she said, how do you feel? Normally she would feel tired, but it was me feeling tired. And I said, I don't understand how I feel so exhausted all of a sudden. Something went on. The chicken hopped down from her shoulder, went to the skirting board. She has black painted wooden skirting board, and pecked down and pulled out a small black snake, a dark coloured snake, and killed it on the floor right in front of me, Fritzy and Lynn. This happened to me right in front of me. And we all said, into the swine. It gave new meaning. The literal sense. It gave new meaning. Now, is that fair that perhaps that being gets harmed because something energetically was within somebody? Who knows? You don't know. Perhaps they are already in pre-agreement before they get here that that's what they will do. Perhaps in taking that out of somebody and destroying its ability to live in the physical by destroying the next physical vessel it's in, eradicates it from the experience and eliminates a great deal more suffering. Perhaps the entity that was inside some of the world's monsters that we know of, psychopaths, etc., these, loveless weaklings that are all around the world, and some people these days on YouTube promote them as heroes. Perhaps had someone been able with the true power to lay hands on them and extract that from them, and then its physical body be dead, then a lot more suffering would have been eradicated. So I don't know yet how that works, but I do know I've witnessed this. Now, for those of you who have watched me for a long time, you will also know that I have locked horns with witch doctors here. And witch doctors do, sadly, it's a negative energy. I hate talking about it, but they do target children in our care, albinism, etc., and special needs for their dark rituals. Now, I came in contact one time with what was definitely a witch doctor energy, and we had took a child from a place where everybody just felt evil to me. We went down to this valley forest, no churches, no message of love, just yellow-eyed drunkards no hope as lost souls, just total lost souls who had no hope where they were. No one was reaching in to pull them out. And in there was a little girl, and this video is on YouTube for Elizabeth. This little girl, we took her, and her mother was addicted to alcohol, and the child was also hooked on alcohol from being in the womb and breastfeeding, etc. But everybody there was dark. I could feel it. I'm very sensitive to persons' energies. I could feel the darkness on them. When I left, I began to vomit blood, and I got extremely sick. Within 12 hours, I started vomiting blood. 2 times I have come close to witch doctors. The other time, I took a child who had been sliced hundreds of times, prepared for a ceremony, and I challenged in prayer these people, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't strong enough. On that occasion, I vomited blood as well. Very dark stuff, I know, but this is the front line sometimes. So on that occasion with the child who had been sliced, etc., he's okay, he's fine. Then I vomited blood. Next time it happened was this child, Elizabeth, and I vomited blood. So I went home and I was down and out, and Fritzy even was thinking to try and get me into hospital because it was just non-stop ongoing. I was totally just incapacitated for a day and a half. And then I spoke, and God mobilized so much. I spoke to Lynn, having seen this before, and she said, I can't do this on my own. And begrudgingly, because Lynn didn't agree with it, she said, contact your shaman. And the shaman who had married me on my wedding day is a deeply loving being and a very loving woman. And she undoubtedly works with the Holy Spirit, even if the imagery, the framework is different to the cultural description, how it's expressed through the mind. It's still the same origin of the Holy Spirit. It's still coming through people who are not necessarily wearing a crucifix. And at the same time as that, from nowhere, friends came who we know, who are Jane, and they mobilized a pranic healer who does distance extraction. I had 3 persons working on me. I had a vision, there's a video about this, and in that vision I started listening to the beat of my heart whilst listening to some drum beats, and I saw persons made of blue light, and they were blowing on all of the children and all around Featherstail. And I had this journey, but without any substance, just myself. I had this journey, self-induced journey. I'd never had one like this before. The next day, a colleague came who's a Seventh-day Adventist, and it was Sunday, so everybody was at church except this one because they go on Saturday. And I said, will you please close that gate so my dogs don't escape? And I was alone, sitting on my veranda in my chair with a blanket on me, feeling weak and shaky. But I was telling her what had happened. And I said, it's as if something came out of me, I think. Perhaps something did come out of me. As she walked to do the gate and came back, in the middle of us, a bird came and picked up a lizard from the roof and dropped the lizard in front of us and killed it in a very gruesome way. It physically killed this lizard and then flew off. 2 times I've had direct extractions done on me, and 2 times I've also witnessed a bird or an animal that is being governed by the good angles of light destroy a physical being around me, right in front of me. And I do, because of that, also wonder if I don't understand the full mechanisms or what needs to be done fully to destroy perhaps a negative entity that's moving around or has gotten attached to us, etc. But what I do know is that it's meant to be read on multiple levels, and it's meant to be looked upon with understanding and with more depth, because we can't foresee what could have been without that. We can't foresee that what would have happened without these events. You can't foresee if that person would have been a psychopath and harmed many more people. You can't foresee if the swine in the story had pre-agreed to this before they got there, to glorify what was going to happen. You can't foresee that. But you can look at it from the different levels of your consciousness, which is alpha, beta, theta, delta, new mind, which is represented in the Bible by earth, water, air, fire. That's why you're baptized with fire. That's why you're supposed to, the Pope's something to wash feet. He's meant to bring you up from earth, the feet touch the earth, to water, to the next level, from beta to alpha. This is what you're supposed to do to elevate, to bring yourself up through the consciousness stages, to be able to reach God, where you are baptized with fire at the end. Remember John the Baptist said, a greater one will come after me and he will baptize you with fire. That's because after you've been in Alpha and you go up, this is where you're communing with God. It's just describing your antenna of prayer. It's just describing how you reach up and actually hear God and be able to radiate that love from that theta state, which is where it happens. Now, when you read the book on Beta, you can learn the lesson that I speak of about this chicken killing the snake in front of me. This is a Beta reading. You see that there's a physical destruction of an entity inside these animals. And yes, it might be unfair to the animals, and we give thanks for their sacrifice, of course, but we don't know the future. We don't know if it was necessary. Likewise, good human beings die as martyrs for God always. We see this often. Bob Marley sang of it. How long must they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a forfeit. We've got to fulfill the book. It's sometimes part of the creation, because death is part of life. It's an inescapable part of life. So that's to read it on Beta. But then when you go to Alpha, then you can say, hey, swine actually represents the lower nature. That's why when you give pearls to swine, remember in the Bible that a man sells everything to hold on to one pearl. That's me. I want to sell everything to hold on to the pearl that is God in my heart. And it also says in the Bible, you're casting pearls to swine. It means you're casting deep wisdom to the lower nature of people, and it's just getting eaten up and destroyed because they don't understand it, because they're not in the right space of being to hear what you're saying. It's wasted on them. So you can understand that the tomb is the lower nature and the swine is the expression of the lower faculties of man. And so you can understand why then this man who was possessed with legions, he came from the tomb and he was moving between tomb and mountain, like we all do. And these lower entities, Jesus cast out this legion into the swine, actually showing you that these lower entities can only live inside the expression of you adhering to the lower nature expression within your life. And that's because we as human beings created Satan. God created Lucifer, Lucifer fell, Lucifer tempted humanity, humanity agreed to the temptation, humanity made Satan. That's how it works. That's the energetic exchange that was being spoken of. And the only way that Satan can operate in you is from the swine level of your consciousness, from the lower aspect of what you are. And that comes from the tomb, the lower nature, and the actions are the herd of swine. So you read that from Alpha or Delta or Theta, and you start to see the other layers of it. So I hope that answers your question. I love you all. God bless, guys. Bye. Again, sometimes I wasn't expecting all of those anecdotes to come to my mind and speak of them. It's the importance of staying here, because you never know what's going to flow through you from there. Be it in speech, be it in action, be it in manifestation, creation, original ideas. Stay in your heart. Stay in your heart if you need to serve the Lord. God bless, guys. Bye.